Good afternoon, Auburn Alliance Church. You're here at our 5 to 5. Thank you for joining us and tuning in with us. And we have a special guest today, Mr. Eric Quinn, and he's one of our leaders here at Auburn Alliance Church. And normally we take on our 5 to 5s. We can do things that are fun and just enjoyable. And yesterday we had to fly back in, Pastor Jim and I, from Paris and China and all those wonderful locations around.
Cedar Point.
You had to bring up Cedar Point.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, we knew that before we saw that.
That's right. No hands, Mom. Anyway, he was on a roller coaster. But today we're going to take something, it's not so much serious as much as we just wanted to talk to you about where are we at as a church. New York State has just entered into phase one. Well, not all of the state. Our region, Central New York, has entered into phase one of returning back to normal, if you want to call it that. And so we just wanted to talk to you about what we're thinking, what we see coming, and just to keep you on the same page with us as a church family, and so that we're all in the know, that it's not just things being dictated for us, but we're doing this together as a church family. And so, Eric, you want to share some thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's exciting to know that we aren't stuck in this perpetual state of emergency where that things are starting to move forward. There's still a lot of things that need to be clarified. I mean, I'm kind of going through this same process with my business and the things that we're being asked to look at. And like you said, the state has clarified a little bit what phase one means for our region. And the governor yesterday held his daily press conference, and someone asked a very specific question about churches. What does all of this mean for churches? And he was clear to say that at this point, the mass gathering together is still not clear. Right. So hopefully people aren't thinking, okay, we're in phase one, let's just go back to the way it was, because every phase is supposed to be a 2-week period. And at any time we could go back based on all of the metrics that they're taking into account. But when he was asked directly about churches, he said that there was no clarity at this point about the mass gathering. There's a couple things to clarify here, because there's a lot of people that feel, churches, there's a whole constitutional thing. Right. I do want to clarify that New York State never closed churches. They saw them as essential services, which is a good thing. But what they did say was the mass gathering was a limitation. And as we start to look at going back as a church and gathering together with our church family, we need to understand that one of the hardest things that we're going to do is to try to come back for Sunday morning worship. There are smaller ministries that may come back before that. We don't have a specific timeline yet. Again, some of this is based on the 4 phases that New York State is recommending and allowing. But we want to do this. We were together, what was it, 9 weeks ago, 2.5 months ago, we sat in that very first Sunday, and we made a statement and said, we are not doing this out of fear. Not out of fear. Not out of fear at all. It's about a spirit of caring for you, caring for the people of our church, wherever they fall in the spectrum of how they have to deal with this based on underlying conditions, or how they feel about how the government's handling it. We're doing everything that we can to maintain this spirit of care for the people of the church. So
I'm in total agreement with that. We talked a little bit about this already in preparation for this video, and I was hoping that with phase one of New York State sort of opening the valve, that might open some doors for us as a church, where in small group settings that people could come together, but there's such ambiguity associated with that. I'll be honest, I'm slightly disappointed in that. I wish there was more clarity, but the reality is that because we care about you and we care about the persona that we put out there. I think it's wise for us to just sort of hold where we're at right now, continue doing what we're doing, and then as more clarity comes, then we can begin to have opportunities for things to come back together in a slow process. We were talking, I'm in agreement with you, Eric, that the hardest thing is going to be for us is going to be coming back together all together. Not difficult as it means we want to come back together. We look forward to that. I long for those days when we can see your faces and hug you and hear what's going on in your world at that point. But it's going to be, we want to be caring for all people in our church family, and we are a true family. We really are. Yeah. And so just want you to know, you were going to say something?
Well, the only thing I was going to say, Mark, was we care for the people. We want to take care of everybody wherever they're at. Again, everybody's in a little bit different situation.
Right.
But one of the things that Pastor Jim, we were talking earlier, we talked about the experience. We would rather not open up to a minimal experience.
Yes.
Right? We don't want people standing out in line outside waiting to get their temperature taken every 6 feet apart. Mm-hmm. And then when you come in, you have a mask on and you're ushered to your seat, which is at least one row away and at least 3 chairs away from anybody else who's not in your family. Mm-hmm. And then have limited singing because you got to have the mask on. And then when we're done, dismiss people by rows and not allow them to gather. I'm not saying that all of those things need to be out of the equation before we come back together, but we want to have an experience that people actually will want to come to church. And that doesn't sound like a place that I really want to go. And the biggest thing is I think all of that distracts from the worship.
Yeah.
That's our goal, is to get people back to corporate worship that engages people into the Spirit. Right. And having those distractions, the distraction of the mask on your own face, but let's say you see a child pull a mask off of their face, does that distract you now to the point where you can't worship well? And again, all these things don't need to necessarily go away before we get back together, because that would kind of really dim the light at the end of the tunnel. But we want to come back as a church and give people the opportunity to just be in the Spirit and to just be able to worship freely without all those distractions.
Yeah, we want the focus to be on God and community rather than the focus on following the CDC guidelines and policing who's going to break the rules and what do we do. It's a very difficult thing for us to walk through. So there's 2 things that I want to clearly communicate to you. The first one is that your leadership teams here, the elders, the board, and the CE committee, have been talking about this in multiple meetings every month. We are gathering together to look at where we are and find out what the governor is saying and see what other states are experiencing and talk about what the alliance is telling us that they would like us to do and see what our district superintendent wants us to do. There's just so many meetings that we're having talking about what things look like and how things could move forward. And the second thing is we're expecting more clarity on these things, specifically from our governor next week, where people have asked, what does this mean for houses of worship? We're not on the list of reopening New York. Well, that's a problem for us. We want to be on the list. We want to obey what our government is telling us to do. And we also want to find practical ways for us to do that. So we want to be obedient and we want to care for people who are there. So today's the day where certain aspects of New York are going to be able to open. But one of those aspects is not our church, sadly. But hopefully next week we'll be able to give you a little bit more clarity on what we hear and what we've decided. And then as we share that with you, we're all looking forward to the day when we can meet together again in small groups and in larger groups. So, today we really wanted to let you know where we've been talking about this. These are some of the things that are in our hearts and in our minds, and share them with you so that you can know where we are. And we definitely ask you to be praying for us, to be praying for wisdom and discernment There's a lot of things for us to think about and talk about. And there's a lot of different opinions on the table. So we really want to be unified in this, and we want to do the right thing as we move forward as a church.
Don't forget, you don't have to show up at our building in order to do what God wants you to do. So we love worshiping, corporate worship, being together, loving on each other, but continue to take care of your neighbors, continue to take care of your family, make sure everybody's okay, because there's a lot of stuff. People are really starting to feel this now after 2 months at home. So encourage each other. I know we're all sick of looking at TVs with little tiny cubes and people in them. But do your best to communicate how much you love the people around you in whatever way you can. So I appreciate you. Thank you, church.
So we love you. Thanks for watching this 5 at 5 video. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday morning for worship. 10:15 is when the service starts, but we begin that announcement loop at 10 o'clock. So we look forward to worshiping with you together, even though it's virtual.